I wonder whether it's even possible for us to see a Blakean type figure in the modern world because of the world we now live in. He saw that world coming into being all those centuries ago, and now we're so downstream of it, living well and truly in the culture downstream of it, that I wonder whether, with all of the distractions at our fingertips, whether it's possible for such a character to exist or to come out into the world. What do you think? Do you think the impediments are too great, or do you think there are kind of people live amongst us?
I mean, I trust the human soul at the end of the day. I think that the reason why we're even talking about this is because we sense a dissatisfaction. The reason why the work of people like Ian McGilchrist has gained such traction is because people know what he's talking about and the loss. But if you can sense the loss, then that is the first step to wanting more. And then a figure like Blake can come in, because I think part of the genius of Blake is he both analyzes what's gone wrong, but in the very analysis gives you this antidote, partly because it's poetry and imagery that he's using, that poetry and imagery bring a kind of energy or a vitality to bear. I mean, I learned this the hard way myself. I did a PhD on Plato, and it was very much in a kind of analytical, modern Anglo-American frame. So I got the PhD and so on. But after all that work, I just felt I hadn't begun to get to grips with the spirit of what Plato was really trying to convey. And it was only subsequently, and Blake speaks to this as well, actually, because he was a great reader of figures like Plato, the intuitive, the imaginative, which in Plato's writing includes the color. So the kind of equivalent of the poetry and the imagery in Blake, in Plato, is the ritual and the personalities, the framing. I mean, Plato too is a great poet, in fact, as well. And my PhD had taught me to kind of abstract all that away, to look for the kind of narrow, hard, analytical argument. It's dissatisfying because actually a lot of Plato's arguments, they're not really very watertight. They're a bit baggy. They're quite easy to unpick. But what Plato's doing, I think, is sort of showing the limitations of that as the sole way, but then leading you into what might be a richer way, which is the more intuitive. And so that sense that we have now, the bullet point approach to life, or the quick answer from the technology, it's kind of informative, but a bit emptying at the same time. That precisely is the thing to pay attention to, that emptiness, because that is what you need to try and galvanize. And in a way, take a punt, because it can feel like it's a step of faith to go back to a fuller, intuitive, imaginative, inspired, being breathed into kind of life, because it does feel so contrary to the worldview that's bedded down. But as I say, at the end of the day, I think that we human beings want to be more human, not less. And so these things, in a way, are sent to test us, to prompt us. How can we return sort of the wiser to this richer kind of engagement? Take the risks, put the work in, the practices and so on. You even go through the 3 or 4 year process of trying to write a PhD and finding it unsatisfying. It's our life's work, if you like. But yeah, I know I remain an optimist, because I think at the end of the day, the human spirit is what's driving all this, and the human spirit wants more. It can make mistakes for sure, but nonetheless, those mistakes can be learned from.